is Father Thomas Lynch, and I'm the president of Priests for Life Canada. Priests for Life Canada is an association of Canadian Catholic clergy, bishops, priests, and deacons, and also lay people who promote and defend the sanctity of human life from conception to natural death. We work to support, inform, and empower Catholic clergy to build up the culture of life. And we bring together clergy and all Catholics to fight the culture of death, particularly in abortion and euthanasia. In addition to hosting this podcast, the Pro-Life Hour, we also produce informative bi-monthly newsletters, provide clergy homily notes for Sunday Mass readings. We provide parishes with free pro-life materials as part of the Just for Life program. And we host special congresses and symposia that bring together both clergy and seminarians. As usual today, I'm joined by my co-host, Father John Lemire of Timmins. Welcome, Father John.
Well, thanks, Father Tom. It's great to be back with you.
And before I introduce our guests today, let's begin with prayer. Heavenly Father, you fashioned in your image and likeness every man, woman, and child. Give us, we beg you, a keen eye to recognize that image so that respect for all human life becomes our way of life, and that together we defend the least among us. Grant this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Well, today we have a great program ahead of us, and our guests today are Dan Heffernan and Alex Schadenberg. After a long involvement with the Knights of Columbus, Dan was recently elected as the Ontario State Deputy. He's currently serving as the State Deputy-elect, and his term will begin on July 1st of this year. He's going to talk about the challenges that lie before him. I've known you, Dan, for a long time, so just briefly,
right.
We met through Pro-Life. In fact, we were talking about how we got to know each other, especially 9 years ago, with a 40th anniversary conference of Humanae Vitae, which you might say a bit about. And but also over the years as well, we've also got a connection through Dan's brother, Father Vincent Heffernan, who with Angelina Steenser was a co-founder of the Second Chance Ministries. But recently we met up with Dan and his lovely wife Rita at the National March for Life in Ottawa, and we're looking forward to this chance to talk with you about your new role. So welcome, Dan.
Father Tom, I hate to interject, but maybe some people don't know what Second Chance Ministries is, so you should say one word about that.
It's a post-abortion ministries to help women who are suffering from all the effects of abortion, either immediately after or indeed even many years. And so Father Vince is out of the Scarborough Foreign Missions, and Angelina is further out in the GTA and has been working on this for, 20 years plus, eh? And then Alex, who broke in there. Alex Schadenberg is the Executive Director of the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. He's a published author and a much sought-after speaker around the world. He has the world's most widely read blog on dealing with the topics of euthanasia. And most recently, Alex has been involved with the creation of a video documentary called The Euthanasia Deception, which I highly recommend, and I would hope that you would be able to see it. It was released in 2016, and he's now working on a new video called Fatal Flaws, which will be released later this year. And in addition to all of this, Alex was recently elected to the position of Pro-Life Director with the Ontario State, Ontario group of the Knights of Columbus. And he'll begin his new role on July 1st as well. Welcome, Dan and Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great being with you.
Well, guys, I wonder, Dan, if you could tell us a little bit about how you became involved in the pro-life movement.
Well, it's interesting, when leading up to this podcast, and I saw what that question, when I had to think back to that, and there's times it seems like I've always been involved in the pro-life movement. But recently, my wife and I came across a newspaper clipping from, it was either 1983 or 84, when there was a pro-life rally at Queen's Park, and there was a picture of my wife and I at the forefront of a group from Port Elgin, Ontario, that we had all gone down by bus. And until I saw that newspaper clipping, I actually really forgot that we had been at that rally.
All merge in together, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And so then I was appointed as pro-life chair for the Knights of Columbus, for Ontario State Knights of Columbus from 2004 and 6. And during that time, Father Tom, you may remember, I started a group called the Culture of Life Team. We called it COLT. And we met, at first we used to meet about every 6 weeks or so, and we had a loose association of pro-life groups, people who just came to kind of get their batteries charged. We met at St. Augustine Seminary, and Father Lynch, yourself, and Monsignor Nuska had held a retreat for us to get us started. And we went on for some years. It was a good 5 years or more we met, and we kind of drifted off, everybody getting busy in their own thing, just kind of drifted off, and maybe it's time to get that started again. But from that, I also then became the president of for 4 years, I was president of the Natural Family Planning Association in Toronto, promoting natural methods of family planning as an alternative to people using the pill. And you mentioned about the Humanae Vitae conference first there. That was 2008, and we kind of threw that together quickly. We realized it was the 40th anniversary of Humanae Vitae, Pope Paul VI, Humanae Vitae from 1968. And all dealing with natural family planning and so on. And when we held that conference in St. Mike's College, we expected a handful of people to show up.
We wondered if we were going to have enough people to cover our costs.
That's right. And we ended up with over 700 people came, and they had warned us about not having too many people because the fire code only allowed so many people in the room. We ended up turning people away. We had people coming in from Sudbury. They'd driven from Sudbury all the way to Toronto for this pro-life or this Humanae Vitae conference, and we've got now next year is the 10th anniversary, so we got to start working on getting a 10th anniversary set up.
That's what we need more work. But you're right. We will. I think we were going to have to respond to those requests.
Yes.
And along with this too, I wonder, Dan, how long have you been involved with the Knights?
Oh, I joined the Knights in 1988, and I've held different positions on the council level, the Grand Knights and treasurer and financial secretary, different things. And then I started 3 councils in Barrie and Base Borden, and one in Angus. And then I was elected to the board. Well, I was pro-life chair from 2004 to 6. Then I was elected to the state board in 2006. And now I've just been recently, as I say, just this last convention, been elected as a state deputy. But in the pro-life area, too, also, I've been on the National March for Life in Ottawa, which has just been growing and growing every year. I've been attending that, I think, since not its first one, but pretty close to its first one. And I now sit on the organizing committee as well of that National March for Life. So enough said about me.
Alex, so do you want to give us, I know you've been on before, but people who may not have heard it, do you want to tell us about your pro-life experience as well, how you became involved in the movement?
I think I was a little child. No, honestly, I grew up in the pro-life movement, so I've been doing this for all of my life. And I became the pro-life director of the Diocese of London Pro-Life Office in 94. I did that for 5 years for the Diocese of London between 94 and 99. Before that, I was the president of CIPLO, which is where we got to know each other well. Between
Actually, I met you with your parents when you were younger. But anyway, go ahead.
I was much younger, that's right. Yes, well, as you know, my parents were very much involved in pro-life for a very, very long time.
But that's where we got to know each other, right, with CIPLO.
That's right.
Canadian Youth Pro-Life Organization.
Yes. So I did that between 88 and 90 as the national president. Before then, I'd been on the board. And so it's a lifelong commitment. But in the case of the euthanasia issue, it's something I started with Dr. Barry DeVeber after leaving the Diocese of London work, and I've been doing this full-time since 1999. So it's a long commitment, and in that time it's we've gone from a situation where people would say, oh, euthanasia will never be legalized. That would be a crazy idea, to the fact that now we actually have legalized doctors directly killing their patients. And further to that, doctors being told, oh, well, you don't have to do it, but you're going to have to refer for it and question their conscience, right? So all these things were sort of seen way back when, that it appeared that we were going this way, and sadly we're now here. And now my focus is how do we protect people in a culture that allows your doctor to kill you.
Father John?
And Alex, also, if you could just say a little bit about your involvement with the Knights of Columbus as well, and how you got involved. And
I got involved. We had at the time there was a college council at King's College at Western University, and I got involved at that time. So when I was a student at Western, so I guess
founding member of that council.
Yeah, that council existed till about 1991 or something. So about 1988, I became a member there, something like that. I believe it was 88. So about the same time as Dan, funny enough. And from there, after finishing at Western, there was a couple of years where, because you leave a college council, you don't necessarily transfer your membership. But then after have my first child was born, Viviana, then I transferred my membership to West Lauren, where I'm still a member now, because that's where we lived at the time.
Father John?
Wonderful. And the Knights of Columbus have always been strong supporters of the pro-life movement from almost its inception, and we've seen some wonderful initiatives not only at the local and parish level, but at the state level, and certainly from Supreme. So, Dan, maybe you could share with our listeners a little bit about the connection that the Knights of Columbus have with the pro-life movement and helping to build a culture of life and love.
Well, it's interesting when you go back to the very origins of the Knights of Columbus. It was started by Father Michael McGivney in 1882 in New Haven, Connecticut, for something very along the same reasons. It was about life and family, because what he saw at the time was Catholics, and particularly Irish Catholics, were being discriminated against. And so when either a husband would lose his job, or problem was in those days with work being very unsafe, lots of times they would lose their life. The government would then step in and say, well, you don't have any income coming in, or in the case of a husband being killed on the job, be saying to the wife, women aren't allowed to work in those days, so with you having absolutely no income coming in, you have no way of taking care of your children. So the government would take the children away from the family and adopt them out through Protestant families, who would then now raise them as Protestants instead of Catholics. And there was one particular situation that just tore at Father McGivney's heart, where he stepped in and said, no, I'm going to guarantee the situation where we will take care of this family. So then he called together a group of men. He said, this is unacceptable. We have to form some organization who can protect our families and our faith. And that's how the Knights of Columbus began. It was all about protecting families. And so it's interesting that here we are today now still protecting families, protecting life itself right from its very inception. And now we're looking at the opposite end of life, at the end of life, with the euthanasia and assisted suicide issue. So the Knights of Columbus have always been at the forefront.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Dan, because at the recent leaders meeting where we just had last weekend, turnover meeting of the new leadership, that was exactly my point with the men, that in fact we have exactly the same type of situation now with euthanasia, with the number of people who are, let's say they're in a very difficult situation, but they find themselves lonely and alone, and they find themselves feeling that life has lost value. And the Knights of Columbus belong in this place, because the fact of it is we were founded for the widows and orphans, but we were founded to provide that assistance for these people. So now, where do we belong? We belong with the people who are going through this difficult time of their life, to make sure that they don't feel that euthanasia is the answer for them. Because a lot of people, euthanasia, like, this sold to us as it's the new right, it's the new opportunity to have control of our lives and the rest of it. It's all a bunch of gunk. It's what it's about is someone at a very, very difficult time of their life. They're going through a psychological trauma with their situation. They feel they have no hope. Well, these are normal human realities for people going through this situation. The difference is how can I be with that person? How can I care for that person? How can we make sure that person doesn't think that, euthanasia would be a good option because no one seems to care anyway. And we belong there. We absolutely belong there.
I think one of the things that sorry, you were going to say, Dan?
Well, I was just going to say that people have a hard time with dying, and this is something, as Alex had talked about, was the recent leadership conference I just had last weekend. People have a hard time with dying and being there, and that's what the point we're trying to get across now. It's an education we're going to have to do, that our place, our role in this as members of the Knights of Columbus and members of the public is to be there. If necessary, let people die in your arms. If that's what it takes to let them die naturally, as opposed to being euthanized. And I think to the palliative care bill that is now before the House of Commons, it's something that we're going to have to be getting behind. Because,
do you want to say a bit about that?
Sure. Pardon?
You want to say a bit about that bill for our listeners?
Well, I don't know a lot about the actual bill itself, other than I heard the MP speak on the Hill last week about it, and I spoke to her then at the Rose Dinner, and I'm planning on getting together with her to see what we can do as Knights to support, at least, to get a public campaign going so that people know more about it. But I guess it's one of those things, you can't say to people, it's wrong to euthanize yourself or to commit assisted suicide if then you don't do anything to actually help them. We have to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to speak out against on euthanasia. Then we got to be there and support these people so that euthanasia is not their only option. Same thing at the pro-life end. We say to people, pro-life, abortion is wrong. Then you better be prepared to do something to support the young mother who we're telling her that she should not be aborting her child, and when the child's born, we have to be there to support her. And so it needs to be supporting people at both ends of life.
So what sort of opportunities would you both see for the collaboration between the Knights and other pro-life organizations? You've alluded to it, for instance, about this leaders conference, and maybe if one and the other could talk about, first of all, what have been the collaborations in the past, and what would you see in your new positions as possibilities or your desires or vision for that collaboration in the future?
Well, I'll comment, and then Dan can. Sure. Dan being the leader, let him go to fulfill. But the rest, but we have already programs in place that we've been having for years, and some of those programs have gone, I would just say, to the side, meaning that they're not as well served anymore. For instance, we have the Roses for Life program, which is a program to raise money for pro-life initiatives, where councils are asked on Mother's Day or on Pro-Life Sunday to hand out roses and collect donations for pro-life. But we've been finding that I believe last year the number was that there was 80 councils who participated in Roses for Life, and there's over 500 councils. Now, I was the pro-life chairman and Roses for Life chairman in 1995, a long time ago, when I was much younger and much better looking. Anyway, and at that time, almost all of the councils participated, and Dan could say, his history on the board, that historically most councils participated in that program, and now it seems to be one that has just sort of been forgotten as regime change occurs, as new Grand Knights come along, as new people come along. It's been one they've sort of set aside and they don't do.
And yet the local groups have always struggled to try to keep their head above water financially.
That's exactly it.
So much of their time raising money rather than doing the work they need to do.
So one of my goals is simply to go into a sales job to speak to the district deputies and the Grand Knights and the different people to say to them, well, this is not a difficult program, but it's an essential program to raise money, and even if it's a small amount of money, it's better than no money at all. And so the fact of it is let's reinstitute this program province-wide, and I know that Dan is on board with that. The other thing is we have the March for Life. Now, the March for Life, some councils have been involved, and we saw actually this year a bit of an increase in that, where councils were donating money towards buses going to the March for Life.
Which I will say in my own home council in Lindsay, we do all the time.
That's right. So I'll give you an example. In the Kitchener area, they were able to send 3 buses this year because the Knights of Columbus were able to, each council donated money, and they were able to defray the cost. So I believe it was like $10 or $20 or something to go on the bus. So they had 3 buses go, and now they're hoping for more next year. But the point of it is that allows people, it frees up the ability for people to go to the March for Life, especially since a lot of people go to the March for Life are students, and they may or may not have money depending on who the student is. But the fact is that it does make it more possible to make it happen. So these are the kind of things. But the other thing is the Knights of Columbus actually belong right within the support mechanism of the pro-life movement, because we're in communities right across Ontario. This is the Ontario jurisdiction we're talking about. And this is where we belong. We belong hand in hand, whether it be the local dinners, the local life chains, or whether it be any of these initiatives. And as Dan was talking about the fact of the crisis pregnancy centers, etc. But now with the legalization of euthanasia, each council has to say to themselves, what are we doing to visit members of our local parish communities, and even if they're not a Catholic, there's someone we know, to be with them as they're going through these times. It's unacceptable that so many people are alone and lonely as they're going through their struggle of time, where they're going through their difficulty, and they're considering that their life has no purpose. Their life has no purpose because nobody is saying you're important to me. It's important that we recognize that each human being is intrinsically important, is an intrinsic value, that we be with them. Because it's normal for a human being to lose hope if it seems like they're going through a difficult condition. They're worried about what their future is holding as they're nearing death, and no one seems to care. We need to become that culture of life. This is the challenge to us, and it's not an easy challenge. It's probably the hardest challenge of all. Actually, fundraising is the easier challenge.
Yeah, that's right.
Becoming the culture of life, that is the long-term battle here that we're being faced with. That's the change of our own hearts, too.
Yeah, and I just picking up what Alex is saying, and I'll go back just to the Roses for Life. It sounds like a simple program, but it does raise a lot of money. But it does more than raise money. It raises awareness. When people see someone walking around with a rose on their lapel, they either see that and say, oh, you're pro-life, because they already know what it is, or they'll ask them, geez, what's the rose all about? Yep. And it gives that person an opportunity then to say, I'm wearing this rose because I'm pro-life. So it's an education as well. And
that's right.
Just like following up on what Alex is saying about the end-of-life issues, this is something I came aware of through my course of being involved in the pro-life movement, is that people are pro-life, they want to be pro-life, but they just don't feel confident enough to speak out on it. They just don't feel they have the tools, the education to speak out on it, because the anti-life people are so outspoken and so vociferous in the way they talk that it scares people off. So they're like, geez, I can't speak up against these people. So we need to do an education. First of all, so that our members, not just our members, but our families, our members' families, their friends, anybody can be educated to be able to speak up and say, no, this is wrong, and here's the alternatives to that. So it starts with education, and just, like I was saying, to educate people to go into the hospices, as an example, and visit the people who don't have family members that can be there, or fill in the spaces. Just recently I know a family that went through this, and thank God they had family members who could be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But, a husband's wife is dying in the hospice, and he has to also hold down a job. He has to go to work, so someone needs to fill in those hours when he can't be there. And if there's not family members to do it, then what's wrong with somebody from the church group doing it, or the Knights of Columbus, or the CWL, or just members of the public? Somebody else who just says, I know your situation and I want to come in and be there for you. So we need to do education and point out to people where the opportunities are that they can actually do something. They don't know themselves, so we need to educate them.
Father John?
Besides the Roses for Life, could you tell our listeners a little bit about some of the other initiatives that the Knights of Columbus have done, whether at the provincial level or even at the Supreme level, because you have some wonderful programs that are out there?
Yeah, Supreme has certainly set the standard high for us, and that's the good part of things, that with Supreme speaking up, I mean, you couldn't get a better advocate for life than Carl Anderson. He speaks out all the time on it. And I guess it kind of, for want of better words, it gives us the license to move forward, so that okay, it's okay to speak as strongly and as advocately as we do on these issues, because he's speaking that way. And so I'm glad that our Supreme Knight has spoke out as strongly as he has. And then at the state level, we are moving in the right direction. We're, like I say, appointed Alex to be our pro-life chair, and we've started a new internal magazine called Life Matters, and Alex is going to be the editor, so to speak, of that particular magazine.
And speaking of collaboration, I'm going to be writing for it. So.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of our education tool, educating people. I don't think there's a lot of sense in having a bunch of programs if we're not educating the people as to what they can do. So we have the programs like Roses for Life, and we get involved in the life chain. I don't think it's one of the things that we tried not to do is to compete with things that are already going on out there. There's no sense in us trying to create our own life chain or our own March for Life and so on. So what we're trying to do is to look around and see what's there. Life chain's already there, then we're going to get in on it and help and work with the people that are doing that. So that's the kinds of things that we're trying to tell our membership that they should be getting involved in. And not just the members, but bring your family out. Because every member of the Knights of Columbus, of which there's 56,000 members in Ontario, every member has a circle of 15. And that's 15 people that you influence, whether that's your wife and children and brothers and sisters and so on, or people you work with, whatever. So you take 56,000 people and you multiply that by 15. That's a significant number of people that if every one of our 56,000 people were involved in pro-life at both ends of life and during life. It's not enough just to be pro-life at the beginning of life and the end of life. A lot of people go through some pretty hard life struggles throughout the course of their life, and we need to be more involved in all those issues throughout. And we can have a significant impact on making life better for everybody.
Also, at the supreme level, they have the Culture of Life Fund.
Yes, that's right.
And so that's money that's collected from the membership every year through the councils, and that fund is then used to fund mainly things like the ultrasound program. Now, in Canada, we have difficulty with the ultrasound program due to government regulations. Certainly in Ontario, we have a problem with the ultrasound program due to government regulations. Meaning that the government regulates things in such a way that it's nearly impossible for a crisis pregnancy center to run their own ultrasound, even though there might be ways to do it. So anyway, this is an important initiative, but on top of it, it has been funding pro-life initiatives.
It certainly funded our congresses for priests and symposia for seminarians.
That's right.
Yes, and it's also helped with the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, and it's helped with the March for Life, and many things like that are significantly important and need that sort of support. So that fund exists, and if you consider that there's 56,000 members in Ontario, there's a fair amount of money that's collected every year in Ontario alone. But in Canada, there's well over 100,000 members. So it's a fair amount of fund that enables the Knights of Columbus to help pro-life initiatives. And so these are very important things, and it has an ability to do this, and we're thankful to have that ability.
I wonder if, because we are really concerned about this in terms of happening right now within Ontario, for the listeners who are maybe not in Ontario, Ontario currently is, and I do mean currently as of May 17th, debating the conscience rights for medical personnel in regard to mercy killing. And this is a very contentious area because in general, but also because in our province, we are the only province in the country that doesn't protect conscience rights in this regard. So I wonder if both of you could comment on how you see the role of the Knights of Columbus in Canada, but also in Ontario, in helping to protect conscience rights and adjusting to this new reality of legalized mercy killing.
It's interesting you bring that up because I know the Walkerton Council contacted me several months ago. They have a member of the council who is a physician who was very concerned about what was happening and the fact that he was feeling pressured then by the Ontario College of Physicians to have to refer people not only for euthanasia but for abortion services, etc., right? Things that he would never participate in. And so therefore they contacted me, and I did a presentation a few weeks ago there based on the fact that this member was very concerned. But in their own parish, then, they organized this whole, how would you say, signing and getting members of their local parish to write letters. So the Knights of Columbus became a conduit to that. And in fact, this is an important thing. The Knights of Columbus has an ability, because it's right across the province and parishes everywhere, to actually make a difference. And I think that's an important situation to be looking at. That's exactly what they can do. And this is where they belong, in a sense. They are a group of people who are everywhere in nearly every parish, and they're able to organize these things. Interesting enough, though, the Catholic Women's League, who I am obviously not a member of, they have been very effective in getting their councils active on this. And I've been working with the Catholic Women's League through the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. And maybe the Knights of Columbus should be looking at what the CWL is doing, because they've done some very effective activities, and seeing how we can partner with them also, because they're doing some great things all over the place also.
Yeah, I really I would completely concur with that, because I think they do some savvy lobbying as well. They're very keen about levering the number of people that they have.
That's right. And just following up on Alex's comments here with the conscience rights. I mean, right now it's the conscience rights of the doctors that we're dealing with, and we need to do, as like the Walkerton Council has done, we need to spread that throughout the whole province to get councils helping their parishes to petition the government to try and protect the conscience rights. But what happens 25 or 30 years from now? Is it now going to become the conscience rights of the patient, where the patient's saying, I don't want to euthanize myself, I don't believe in it, but they're going to be saying, well, you have no choice, because we just don't have the taxpayers' funding anymore. You don't have the funding to be able to pay for private care, so therefore you have no choice but to, we're going to euthanize you. And it's, people will say, sometimes people will laugh at you and say, well, they'll never get to that.
Well, I don't think anybody could say that anymore.
Well, that's right. Well, that's right, because so many years ago when we even suggested that euthanasia might be a possibility someday, people thought we were nuts. Well, here we are. So now's the time to be fighting this and speaking out on it and stopping it, because it is someday going to be right at our doorstep, and that's when it's going to be too late. So we got to speak out now.
And the reality is that someday is very, very soon, and it's in many instances it's just before us. Even anecdotally, this morning before Mass, I had an older parishioner come up and concerned about the whole issue of euthanasia and whether that might happen if she ever got into the hospital, and wondered if it would help if she got a tattoo that had very clearly on her arm, "Do not kill me by euthanasia." And wanted to know whether that might help protect her life, but it's obviously there in the minds of many, and many of our elderly and our sick and our disabled are very concerned about this.
On Sunday, I had a woman who has been a valiant palliative care volunteer break down in tears because there have been several killings right on her shift in the last couple months, and she was told, well, if you can't handle that, if you don't agree, then you've got to stop.
I just got an email from one of our supporters, and the person's father just passed away, and they live in Peterborough. And this person told me that his father was asked twice, do you want euthanasia, in a direct way. And the point of it is that these are people going through a very difficult time in their life. They clearly do not want euthanasia, but by constantly asking them in such a way, and it's a type of pressure, it's a type of coercion, because the person's already, they are going through one of the toughest times of their life, and there's a type of pressure now within that, and that's the reality, whether you're right like that.
If I have the time, I could just relay a little story to you, and this goes back as far back as 1993. My wife had a very serious car accident in 1993. Rita was in a coma for a month and a half, and she was at Schadenberg Hospital in Toronto. And while she was still in the coma where she's right out cold, there's a period when she was actually awake and she could speak to me, but if I left the room for 5 minutes and came back, she would think I'd never been there. So they still classified that as being comatose. So, but in the period where she was right out cold and on life support system, the doctor one day said to me he wanted me to go for a walk. And so we go for a walk, and he takes me around into this area of the hospital where there are various people that are on life support, and he's just telling me this person's been here for 8 years, and this person's been here for this long, and this other person's been over here. And there was a young girl, she was only 16 years old, had been in a car accident, and she'd have her eyes open, but she was really, even though her eyes were open, she was out of it, like she was technically in a coma. And it started occurring to me that what he was really doing was opening my eyes to if your wife ends up it doesn't wake up, because what he's saying to me is we don't know when or if she's going to wake up. And so do you want your wife to end up like one of these was kind of what he was saying to me. Now, thank God, my wife, finally eventually opened her eyes on the 6th day, but even though she still was classified as coma for a month and a half. But that became clear to me back then that what they were trying to do was desensitize me to this and getting me ready for saying, yeah, okay, take her off life support. And that's wrong. It's just wrong.
Well, there's a type of pressure involved because, as you know, there might be the right time to take her off life support, but obviously this was not it, and they were trying to move you that way. That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
So when you look down the line, do you see some other initiatives that you think you can be initiating or being involved in?
Yeah, I just started to speak a little bit about it. Was this my eye-opener, I guess, when I heard Alec, you know the name of the MP, Marion. Pardon?
The one with palliative care bill.
I'm sorry, Alex, we didn't hear you.
Marilyn Gladue is the member of Parliament who has the palliative care bill being debated right now, yes.
And when she spoke about that on the Hill, I guess it kind of was one of those moments, where you're kind of hit between the eyes. And I realized this is a place for us, to be. We need to be getting behind this palliative care bill. And whether it passes, this particular one passes, or it's a subsequent one, I don't know, because I don't know enough about this particular one and how it's worded and so on. But it just hit me that in general, this is where we need to be, is supporting palliative care and hospices. So I spoke about this at our turnover meeting on Saturday, that for people to be looking forward to a program coming, and it's just in the planning stages right now with myself and the program director and so on, as to how are we going to put this into place. And of course, Alex is going to be at the forefront of that, because he's our pro-life director and he's our euthanasia expert. So I'll be talking to Alex at length about what kind of program can we put in place, put out there for our councils to be getting behind, get our councils to then take it to their individual parishes, and then get more people within the parishes involved. It becomes an education up and down the line, and it becomes actually a network of people who can then do, as I said before, go into the hospices or the hospitals and spend time with these people. Because as Alex said, if people don't feel that other people value their life, then they won't value their life, and euthanasia becomes sort of the inevitable end. So we need to be there. We need to be holding these people's hands and holding them in arms if we need to till the very end.
Affirming that their life has value, even when they may not see it themselves. And the advantage to the Knights of Columbus, as I say, similar to the Catholic Women's League, is that we are right throughout Ontario. We are in nearly every parish, and the fact of it is that sometimes the priest might be wondering, who do I speak to help us visit this person? Who can I contact? Well, the Knights of Columbus should be that group that is able to be contacted about that. And there should be some sort of training or some sort of ability to say, "Hey guys, this is where we belong, and this is a serious part of our work."
Yes,
right. I think the various challenges and to the family, to life are changing all the time, and I mean that has always been the case, as you alluded to from the very beginning of the founding of the Knights of Columbus. But in our time, we have to be specific about it in the same way that they have responded extremely well, and I think brilliantly, if you look at things like the insurance, etc. In the past. So too, we need to be just as creative and courageous too. I mean, I've been a knight for a very, very long time, as I know you have too, Father John?
Correct. Yes.
And one thing I've always liked about it is that it's now for several generations that seminarians have joined, and they have known the personal support of the Knights, and now it's a question of being able to as you were alluding to, Alex, continue to be the right arm of the church in this regard, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. There's we are having our symposium. Our symposium for the clergy coming up, actually, on the topics of pastoral response to mercy killing and to so-called medical assistance in dying. That's going to be the very last weekend of August, and it's being financially assisted by the Knights Culture of Life Fund, so that we can bring priests in from across the country, priests and deacons. It's still mostly priests who will be coming in from across the country to subsidize them, so that they can have the pastoral tools necessary to go back and to be not just strong voices, but to be a pastoral voice within their own region and in their own parishes in this regard. I think we have to finish up pretty much, but just any future plans that you might have, Dan or Alex?
Well, the big thing is, as Dan said earlier, also making councils aware of what we can be doing and should be doing, and that's the importance of this upcoming Life Matters Pro-Life newsletter. I don't know how much it's going to be read, but it's really, once again, it's like any organization. If you want someone to do something, you have to be able to sell it to them. And I guess that becomes my job, to be selling to them that they should be doing the Roses for Life, to sell it to them that they should be involved in March for Life. But they should be aware. We want to have people, the members, aware of what they can do and what they should be doing in their communities, etc. And that's exactly why I had contacted you to write for it, because they should know that Priests for Life exists, and it's not only a service, but it's a resource, and what is happening. They should know this, these councils, and that's what we're up to.
And just as a follow-up, again, I'm just going back to the new program that I want to get going, and that is in this whole area of palliative and hospice care for people. We are seeing our generation or our membership is aging, as almost all service organizations are seeing that. Our average age each year is just going up. So we have a lot of older members that say, well, I can no longer come out and work at some of the fundraising activities that we do because some of them are physically demanding. But there are things that those older members can do now, and that is going around to places and visiting people in the hospitals or in the hospices. And
even in their homes.
Within their homes, too. That's right, within their homes. And so this is something that older people can do, our older members and their wives, for instance, or other family members can do. So I think it's another – I'm kind of really interested in getting this off the ground to give people another avenue, another way of being involved and really feeling that they're doing something worthwhile.
Brother John?
And we can't underestimate the importance and the necessity of prayer. And
that's right.
That this is a spiritual battle as well, and the Knights of Columbus and the CWL have certainly been important prayer warriors in the midst of raising those intentions and praying for those needs, and we need to continue to do so. And that's something that all of us, regardless of our age and our abilities and disabilities, can certainly do, and we need to remain steadfast and faithful with that as well.
That's
well,
right.
Dan, we wish you the very best. I thought it was great that when I heard the results of the election in May there, and I think you made a brilliant move with Alex too. So I'd like to thank you both for joining us, and I certainly wish you the very best and look forward to continuing collaboration as we've had in the past. It was a pleasure to have you on the program, and may God continue to bless your very, very important work. And for all of our listeners, I'd like to make you aware that supporting Priests for Life Canada is open to everyone, clergy and laity alike. We're not underwritten by any organization, and we rely on the generosity of all Catholics. Please consider making a donation to Priests for Life Canada today if you wish to donate. You can do so on our website, priestsforlifecanada.com. That's all one word. Or by telephoning us at 1-888-300-2007, 1-888-300-2007. Priests for Life Canada is a registered charity and as such can issue income tax receipts for all donations. We'd also like to send you our newsletter that we put out about 6 times a year, and it'll keep you informed about pro-life issues across the country. So before I finish our program, I'd like again to thank Dan Heffernan, the new State Deputy for the Knights of Columbus of Ontario, and Alex Schadenberg, the pro-life chairman, for coming on today. And we know that you will keep them and their very important work in your prayer as well. So let's end with a prayer for life. God of power and might, wisdom and justice, through you authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and judgment is decreed. Assist with your spirit of counsel and fortitude the leaders of our nation, and may they always seek the ways of righteousness, justice, and mercy, and grant that they may be enabled by your powerful protection to lead our country with honesty and integrity. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Goodbye.
Guys, can you hold on a second?
Sure.
Okay, Father John?